You're doing it again.
Her voice was a faint whisper, but he could tell she was close. He spun around and saw her leaning against the wall. What? His voice boomed over the music. Doing what again? You're disappearing, she repeated. You are becoming invisible. She spoke slowly, as if speaking to a child, and although her response was calm, there was an edge to it. He wasn't certain if that edge was crazy or afraid, or maybe a bit of both. What are you talking about? People can't just disappear. He was getting annoyed, and when he thought about it, it wasn't because this strange girl was telling him that he was invisible. It was because this was the first conversation of more than a few words that he could remember having with anyone in a long time. Okay, she shrugged. You just keep telling yourself that, and while you're at it, take a look at your hand. He did. He took a step back, then another few. He looked again at where his hand usually was, or at least where he thought it usually was. It wasn't there. It was there. It was there because he felt like it was there, and he felt like he had a hand, and he felt like he was holding it up to his face, and yet it was no longer visible. He tried his other hand. It too was missing. Alexander gasped for air and struggled to string a few thoughts together. A series of questions floated through his head as he tried desperately to work out three specific things. How long had he been dead? What the hell was happening to his body and why? And if he was dead, why was he trying to breathe so damn hard? You missed a spot. She hesitated for a second, as his body came in and out of focus like a wild storm. Her mouth felt dry as she reached a shaking hand to his head. She heard his breath hitch in his throat as she ruffled his hair, shaking the droplets that had been hanging on. His matted wet mop stood wildly as she gently ran her fingers through the wet strands, droplets of water running down his flushed face. Her fingers lingered for a second more, then fell softly about his neck. His green eyes aflame, she saw in them wanting and desire. They stood frozen for a moment. Her hand slipped, falling to his chest. A spark of electricity crackled in her palm as the surge began to rise. She had every intention of pushing him away, but instead her hand rested on his heart, rising and falling with his shallow breaths. His hand cupped her chin, soft, tender fingers brushing her lower lip as they travelled down her neck and back again, the sensation sending slivers of electricity through her. "What's my name?" he pleaded. "Alexander." She breathed the name to his lips, so close to hers she could smell the mint on his heavy, warm breath. Slowly, inexorably, his lips brushed hers, teasing, hot and fiery, but not quite a kiss. The loud bang of a backfiring car ricocheted down the beach like a gunshot. She pulled away with a start, looking around, returning to the real world. What was that? Fireworks. His eyes focused on her lips, and she knew that he wasn't talking about the noise.